looking, laying it off, got a stop! Hat trick! Ariel sends it in, off of Gressel. Made it to Elliott. Oh, the Julian Carranza! A spectacular finish! Philadelphia Devils lead!
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and we are 2 weeks into 2025. The Philadelphia Union are officially in Marbella, Spain, as they kick off a 2-week preseason. And I feel like it was just yesterday that José Nuñez reported that news, and it was, long and behold, about a month ago in the Union, right before they went off to the trip, right before they went off to Spain. They announced, hey, by the way, this is our preseason plans, as it seemed every single MLS team around the league announced its plans. But nonetheless, the Union finally announced its plans. They are in Spain, and we did get a bit of news. And as the title says in the episode, what are the Union getting in Bradley Carnell? And we're bringing our guest here in a little bit. But first guest of the night is my good pal, good friend of the show, José Nuñez. Jose, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, getting used to the Pacific time zone right now. Body's still a little jet lagged, but I think it made sense for us to get together one more time here as things continue. And I don't think, Todd, people really realize what we meant when we said that, the news will not slow down this off season, because it feels like it's been beat after beat after beat of just unbelievable things breaking for Philadelphia. So it feels like the lights at the end of the tunnel in terms of the season starting. Before we know it, it'll be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I do got to point out, and so it's been about a year since you and Mike had me on the AAT shows episode where I was out in California. I think Kyle and Jillian were the ones in the airport coming back from California. And it's fitting now, right, that I'm back home on the East Coast. You're in California and San Francisco, farther north than where I was last year. And yeah, it's just funny to watch how the roles have now reversed, with you out there for work and me back here on the East Coast and getting ready to head to Florida here in a couple days. And so we had been joking that watch all this Union news come out while you're away on a work trip. And yeah, I said, you know what, I'll go ahead and bring my laptop with me down to Florida just in case a whole bunch of news comes out. So yeah, that's what I plan on doing for vacation, because I feel like, there's just going to be so much news coming out, and we did already this week and over the weekend get so much news for the Philadelphia Union and for MLS in general.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how fast it's all moving, right, in terms of the different items that we're going to talk about here in a minute, but it just never stops. And I know that we have many viewers that follow you, follow me, follow our guest, that we're sort of questioning, this is going to be a quiet off season. If anything, I would argue it's been the complete opposite from quiet. So yeah, it's happening. It's happening all so fast.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about the first bit of news, and we'll try to talk about these 10, no more than 15 minutes, because we do have to get to our guest tonight. A lot of good, insightful information on Bradley Carnell with our guest tonight, so I don't want to spend too long on these topics, even though, some of them we could spend all night talking about. But the first one is the MLS announced roster rule changes for the 2025 season. You guys can see it on the bottom of your screen, people who aren't watching it live on YouTube. I'll go over these rule changes briefly. All in all, total of 6 changes coming this year in MLS. Starting off with the transfer window. The secondary transfer window now aligns better with the global standards around the world football. Clubs can sign players from July 24th to August 21st, 2025. So that's MLS's secondary window. Previously, the window lasted from July 12th through August 8th. And now we're going to go ahead and see MLS clubs be able to stay in and negotiate and fight off European teams for some of these signatures. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Jose, Chris Albright complained about this. There was another GM during last season that complained about this, saying, hey, MLS teams are actually having to pay a higher transfer fee to get some of these guys because their window closes shorter than the European window. And all in all, it looks like MLS finally decided to change that rule, and I'm happy with this. I'd imagine you are as well, Jose.
I am, and I think this will only help make the league more competitive, though I still sort of question why Canada and the United States still have sort of slightly different dates, and that's fine because I know the Canadian leagues beneath the two MLS teams sort of do their own thing as well. So got to be fair to that. But overall, I think it's good. I mean, this is what they were arguing for, as you mentioned. Multiple, chief soccer officers or whatever term you want to use, GM, sporting directors, whatever, in terms of wanting to align better with the global market, so they're not being manipulated in a way, right? To drive up prices, to maybe miss out on players, to have to just be at the mercy of external parties. So good move overall, and we'll see how well it actually helps.
Moving on to change number 2, cash trades. So clubs can now use unlimited out-of-pocket funds to trade for players within MLS without having to use GAM or other assets like trading away draft picks like the Union do, it seems, every single year. So yeah, this is something that I think is a good move for MLS, where you can, stack up on your GAM. And, some of the teams like in LA Galaxy and LAFC and Miami, they're going to have a limited amount of money just to say, here's $500,000 to get this player from you within MLS. So I think that's a good rule change within MLS. And speaking about GAM, try to go through these quickly. MLS has announced that teams can go ahead and hold on to their GAM for an unlimited amount of time. Previously, it was 3 windows. Now teams can just keep holding on to that GAM. So I look at a team like Philadelphia Union. This will benefit them, a team that's not going to spend a lot of money with the ownership. But Ernst Tanner, we saw him do it this offseason with trading the next 3 years worth of draft picks, getting GAM back from Colorado Rapids. And I can see the Union just continuing to trade players within the league and just collecting that GAM, sitting on it. And if there's a player that they really, really want internationally, go out there and use some of that GAM to buy down that contract, to pay the transfer fees and whatnot. So I like both of those rule changes as well for the league.
As do I. I think it'll be also intriguing to see how teams operate with these rule changes, right? I sense that there's, I don't want to call them bad actors, but actors within the league, meaning teams that will go ahead and do one of the two extremes, right? Completely hold back and wait to really cash in on one specific player, versus others that will tap it out on a yearly basis or get very, very close to tapping it out on a yearly basis. And obviously that all deals with what stage of the cycle they're in, whether they are a contender or just trying to, keep up with an Eastern Conference, Western Conference team, or just flat out wave the white flag and wait till the next player, or if they are literally contenders, buy somebody that can get them over to the finish line in terms of the MLS Cup playoffs, or honestly Leagues Cup, US Open Cup, etc. Teams that are just 1 or 2 players away, they can do something with them. So intrigued to see how they are used by all these parties.
Yeah, absolutely. And then speaking of just staying with buyouts, GAM, all that jazz, the clubs now can buy out to 2 players on guaranteed contracts a year. Previously, it was 1. This does include designated players. And so that's a huge change. I look at a team like maybe Charlotte FC, where they loaned out Karol Swiderski last year. And I think maybe he would have been a candidate for the club to buy out, where I forget the name of the club that he was with in Italy, but they wound up not buying him. And I don't know if there was a buy option, but he comes back to Charlotte and does okay for them. But, I look at, okay, maybe if this rule was in place, maybe Charlotte would have said, we want to cut our losses, start fresh. I do believe that Swiderski was bought before Dean Smith was the manager of the club. And so I don't know. I think this just gives teams a better option. Look, if a player's not working out and they can't find a trade partner, then let's just go ahead and cut them and bring in a new player that fits the roster. Speaking of players that fit the roster, now MLS is allowing homegrown players that are off roster. They can play in 6 matches in unlimited cup games. This is a rule that I'm not too big of a fan of myself, because I feel like this is just MLS manipulating the players, having to play the players without giving them their full contracts and whatnot. So, I guess I understand why MLS did this, but not a huge fan of this rule.
I'm also intrigued, and I need to read more into it. Obviously, as you can imagine, with being on a work trip and not being able to really sit down and see the percolations of how this could be used. And again, I hate to call teams bad actors, but see how the teams are going to maybe manipulate a ruling like most teams do, right? Because you want to play within the rules, even if that means going to one extreme of how to use it. So I'm intrigued about the off roster players because that would have meant someone like a David Vasquez would have been eligible to play 6 games, right?
Yeah,
Versus having to be loaned in for, well, despite having a first team contract, he was loaned in the 1 game, if I recall correctly. That was really, really bizarre. I don't know if I can't remember if it was over Leagues Cup or what it was, but it was one of those
I think it was Leagues
sort of
Cup.
like there was one of those like head tilting moments where like, wait, I thought he had a first team contract. What do you mean he has to be loaned? And that's where maybe I should be learning more about the mechanisms. But I guess a first team player that's off roster needs to be loaned in. So yeah, we'll see how it's all used and ultimately confuses the heck out of all of us.
For sure. So the last two I'll go over really, really quickly, and then we'll get to point number 2 of the news bit. It's designated player loans. If an international club absorbs a designated player's entire salary during a loan period, the MLS side will open up the designated player slot during the loan period, regardless of the player's initial acquisition cost. Previously, only young designated players in U22 initiative player slots were eligible to open up if a player was being loaned out. Fine with that rule. And then roster construction model declaration. So last year, MLS announced during the summertime that teams can either go 3 DPs, 3 U22s, or they can go 4 U22s and 2 DPs. Well, now this year, MLS is saying you can change that up twice. And so, yes, by February 21st, you have to have your model in how you decide to construct your roster. And then by the time that the secondary window opens up, if you want to change that model and go 3 DPs, 3 U22s, go another U22, 2 DPs, you do have the option to do that. So I think that's all in all a really, really good move by MLS. And, none of these moves, rule changes are earth shattering, but I do think that this helps the league get better and better. And you were talking about Jose there for a bit, just learning up on the roster mechanisms and how bizarre this league is with just so much rules. And it feels like you're taking 101 classes, 201 classes, 301, and you're just going up and up and up. Like you're earning a PhD in MLS. I mean, there is so much rules to learn about this league.
Yeah, I actually didn't even. Again, this is how unplugged I've been in terms of anything outside of the union bubble with the news that we've gotten over the past couple of days. But that is really intriguing that roster construction can change mid season, because to me that yells that teams can really decide whether they want to go for it and stick to something, or if they don't feel like they're going anywhere, just tap out and really like change it up, right? In a way. So there, as Vince mentions here, I think that there's going to be some serious manipulation in terms of these roster builds, and I don't think that you can really peg any one team to stick to one specifically for multiple years unless they have an identity of it, much like the Philadelphia Union, right, in terms of being youth developers, etc. So yeah, that is I'm gonna have to. My brain's racing through a lot of scenarios. So this is exciting development with the league starting in a month and change at this point. So a lot to learn for sure.
Absolutely. All right. News point number 2, Philadelphia Union a few hours ago came out with a post on social media, and all it said was, thank you, Marlon LeBlanc. And this is so strange to me because all indications is that Marlon LeBlanc's no longer with the organization. You had reported a while ago, Jose, that Ryan Richter was becoming the Union 2 head coach. A lot of fans wondered, okay, what does that mean for Marlon LeBlanc? Is he in line to replace Jim Curtin? We know that wasn't the case. They went with Bradley Carnell. Some fans wondered, okay, well, could he become an assistant coach with the first team? It looks like that's not going to be the case. You got confirmation from people within the organization, I'd imagine. You had told me off air that people had confirmed to you that Marlon's no longer with the organization. So I'd imagine that came from people inside, maybe not, maybe wherever people are telling the information. But regardless, I think this whole thing is really, really strange, really weird for a manager that's coached 97 games for Union 2, took over in 2020 in August when the Union fired their previous coach, Sven Gartong, and Marlon LeBlanc's been there ever since. And each season, this team's got better and better. And he's had his hands in developing players that hope to be on this Philadelphia Union team for years to come. The David Vasquez's, the CJ Olney's, Frankie Westfield, Kevin Sullivan, I saw posted and said, thank you, Marlon, for being my first professional coach and just getting me started. And it's just strange, really, really strange that the club didn't release a press release, and all they said was thank you, Marlon LeBlanc. No indication, and it took you asking around and getting people to confirm, yeah, he's no longer with the organization. But anything official from the club? Nope.
No, absolutely nothing from the club. And frankly, I didn't reach out to them. I just didn't. So yeah, I actually called you ahead of my lunch meeting that I was sort of confused, right? And words matter, and I want to make sure I get things right. And just, sort of reading between the lines, you look at that post and you sort of just think, okay, he's just a part of the union too. Or immediately where my brain went, and maybe it's because I have more knowledge in terms of maybe what's happening, like, oh, he left the union too, but in reality, like there's really, I'm sorry, left the organization, but in reality, there's really no indication by just looking at this picture without much context. So I did send a few messages around and ultimately did hear from people, sources, that he is indeed out of the union organization. I had sort of heard that was going to happen. I didn't get much confirmation. I don't want to say inside baseball, but like I try to get 2 to 3 people. I never go off with just one, just to be, I don't want to miss. I don't like to miss. I hope to never miss. But then getting the confirmation today from 2 people was kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's look at the email. And of course, there's no email announcing anything about, the man who took this team to the pinnacle of MLS Next Pro last season, despite losing. It's just a bummer. So I wish him well. I got to know him through a one-on-one interview, as well as much like you, Todd, following the success of the team last year, and certainly bits and pieces in previous years. So whoever gets him will probably get a pretty good manager, I like to think, but certainly a better human more than anything. So I wish him luck. If he's listening, Marlon, reach out. Would love to hear what you're up to. But I'm sure he's on to good things. And I also wonder, what does this mean for his son, Kellen? Is he going to remain within Philadelphia? Is the family going to try to shift him to a different academy? And obviously then you start getting into, well, he's an amateur. Yeah, well, you start getting into homegrown rights, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot to be decided and a lot to come out, but obviously the team is maybe preoccupied with Spain. So I'm sure things will trickle out little by little, but ultimately, yeah, Marlon LeBlanc gone from the Philadelphia Union. You're muted.
Good call. You and I can spend the rest of the episode talking about Marlon LeBlanc, and it's a shame that, we just don't have the time to do it. And maybe if the club officially do something, we can spend more time on this topic. But yeah, Marlon's been really great to me anytime that I've talked to him. And yeah, I'm not like Kyle and Jillian of the One Team We Agree On, where they were at every single Philadelphia Union 2 game. And I feel like Kyle was down to every other practice, and I really got to know the players and the coaches. And Marlon, every time I was down there, yeah, really, really great for me. And great to the fans, and just seeing him rep the Bridge Brigade and just always giving them the shout out wearing their merchandise. I mean, he means a lot to this fan base, and it's a shame that this is the way that he's been treated. This is the way that Jim Curtin's been treated, and yeah, maybe this is a trend. And I see the comments coming in here on YouTube. Vince says the disrespect of Curtin and LeBlanc in this offseason seems malicious and petty, and yeah, a lot of people share the same thoughts that Vince has, and that the handling of both firings could have been better. I don't know if Marlon's been fired. Jim Curtin was fired. Frankly, we just don't have any information other than Marlon's not back. And so I think Marlon's contract was up, but clubs never really release how long coaches sign contracts for. So yeah, it sucks that we don't have too much information, which leads us to the last bit of topic. And I promise we'll get to our guest. He's been sitting here patiently for 20 minutes. I apologize. We're going to keep this quick. I promise you. I promise. It is. You broke this news. And for context, people that are just tuning in live on YouTube, I appreciate you guys. But Jose is in an airport currently in San Francisco, in California. And I wake up to a text at 7 o'clock. And it's a message from Jose that shares that the Philadelphia Union are on FIFA's registration ban. And so if it's 7 o'clock here, that means it's 4 o'clock on the West Coast. This guy is the ultimate sicko, just looking for any Philadelphia Union news that he can find. And somehow stumbles across that the Philadelphia Union were on FIFA's registration ban list. And I I have a lot of thoughts on this, and frankly, the way, and I know fans are joking. I've seen them joking. Okay, well, the union and for context, I saw people were asking in the comments, okay, are the union off this list? No, not officially, but we do know now that the union were on this list because the union owe Jose Riasco, who's a Philadelphia Union 2 player, his previous club, $700. $700. And people were joking like, oh, wow, the union can afford $700. No, it's not that. It's the fact that the union did not know how to get his previous club the $700. And, it's understandable where you look at some of these teams in South America and you get to these small clubs. And I can understand why the union struggled, and the union eventually sent the money, and now they're waiting on the club to confirm this at FIFA that they received the money. And once that happens, the union, I would assume, get off this list. We saw a similar situation last year with LA Galaxy where they were on the ban list because they owed a player compensation around $4,500, I think it was. Once that got squared away, LA Galaxy were off the ban list, and I think they spent a little bit over $20 million last year. And so, I fully expect the union to be off this list. But my issue with this whole thing, Jose, and I don't know how you're going to take this, but that's fine. If I get fired for this, if I get pushback, that's totally fine. I'm cool with it. But my issue is the union knew they've been on this list since December 4th. Why didn't the union have a statement already written up for this? It was only a matter of time that somebody was going to find this information. This is public information on the FIFA website. That's how you found this, on FIFA's official website. It was only a matter of time from December 4th, and you found this December 13th. So yesterday. And so a little bit over a month. And it was only a matter of time before somebody found this on FIFA's website. And the union knew all this time. Why wouldn't you have a statement ready? Why wouldn't you have a statement ready knowing that reporters are going to ask you, hey, I found this. You guys are on the FIFA registration ban list. Do you have a comment? And you leave that reporter unanswered for the whole day. And you have another reporter, and credit to him, working his sources and putting the story together. And then once you get your story done, you send it to the club for confirmation. And then the club gets back to you. It's poor, in my opinion. And a lot of fans were speculating. A lot of fans were in panic mode on social media. SiriusXM was even talking about this. And they were in the same boat as us, where there wasn't a lot of information. The union weren't getting back to people for comment. And in my opinion, that's piss poor. And it could have avoided this whole headache, this whole meltdown on social media.
Yeah, and I just want to be super clear with everybody watching and listening. My intention was never to stir the pot in terms of making it seem like the union owed millions of dollars, or Jim Curtin was upset with the club, et cetera, and he's claiming X, Y, or Z in terms of a dispute. That was never my intention. If you read what I wrote very clearly, it's just factual, right? The Philadelphia Union are literally on this list. That's it. And a little bit of context. What up, Hoagie? In terms of other clubs and the way that they gotten out. So I don't know what to say about it other than a quick comment. I again, getting into the weeds here, I did provide the team 3.5 hours, I believe, 3 hours of time to get back to me, and reasonable East Coast hours, not like me at 4 a.m. expecting an answer by 7 a.m., but rather I think I just sort of pinged the union comms at 7 in the morning, hoping to hear back by 10, and I just never heard back. And that's okay. That's their prerogative. But then that's how it sort of spun out of control to the point that you got Tony Miola on Sirius XM just going off for 8 minutes, like raising the alarm. So that was never my intention, and I hope it gets cleared up very quickly, because and just to clarify, the union can continue to have transfer business. They just cannot register them with FIFA. So they could bring players in, but they just can't, potentially play. So neither here or there. I think we can move on. I hope that the union get out of this list. It seems to be fairly quick in terms of, once it's cleared, it can happen very quickly. I think Rayo Vallecano went ahead and cleared their issue, and then within the week, they were off of the list. So for what it's worth, it could be very quickly, but it's almost, and I think Jonathan Tam will use the perfect analogy, it's like the DMV. You just don't know how quick it's going to be. So best of luck. So they just need it to be done before the very first kick of MLS, and they go from there, because there's no, imagine how difficult this would be if they were in CONCACAF Champions Cup, right, playing like a week or two before, potentially how difficult that could have been if they were in another external tournament. So nonetheless, yeah, nothing to report, and still no comment from the club on my initial piece there over 24 hours later. So it is what it is.
Yeah, so I'll add two more pieces here. And shout out to Jonathan Tannenwald for working his sources and getting the story published, and a good story. And I do have to give you a shout out, because look, it was over a month since it had been on FIFA's website and nobody found it. And kudos to you, Jose. Comment on here says, "What a scoop, to be fair." And yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, well done to you. Sicko mode, 4:00 in the morning, and yeah, you find it, and you get Jonathan Tannenwald to work his sources, write a story, and fair play to him. But at the same time too, okay, look, the Union shouldn't just be confirming that story to Jonathan Tannenwald, where not everybody pays for the Philadelphia Inquirer. I think the Union should still put out a statement. There's still people quote tweeting your tweet, still commenting on that tweet, asking, are the Union on this ban list? What's going on and everything? And so, yeah, I mean, I get the Union are in preseason, but at the same time, you knew about this issue for a while. You should have had some kind of statement written up when people would come asking, and eventually it was going to get out there publicly and people would start talking about it. And the Union should have got ahead of this issue from the get-go, and they did not, and it's a shame to see. And the second part that I would add is, if the Union had no confidence that they weren't going to get off this list, then they wouldn't have went out there and loaned in Ian Glevanovich. And so that tells me that the Union are pretty confident that they'll be off the list with them going through with that loaning. And I'd imagine too, we'll see Neil Pierre and Frankie Westfield become official any day now, hopefully. And that's what we were talking at the beginning of the show, where both of us are going to be away, and we know there's going to be so much news coming in. And so even without the homegrown guys, I'm sure there's going to be other comments coming in, other signings coming in. So yeah, it's a lot to look forward to. But the rest of the show, what I'm looking forward to, what you're looking forward to, Jose, is a guy who you and I both got to know, I believe, for the very first time this year in the Union press box, and pricking his brain. And guy is so smart, and he wrote a nice piece exactly what the Union are getting in Bradley Carnell, looking at what he did with St. Louis in his first season there in 2023. And he was kind enough to join Jose and I on tonight's show and sit through 28 minutes of Jose and I just shooting the crap. So yeah, we told him 10 minutes, and for any guests that may come on with Jose and I, just know when we say 10-15 minutes, we always just talk over the allotted time we say, and that's on us. But you guys come to know that with Jose and I. But nonetheless, our guest tonight is Ali El-Araby. Ali, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm so sorry we made you sit through that for 20 minutes.
No, I'm you should be less sorry about sitting through half an hour of YouTube, with some excellent reporting on the uni as usual, and more sorry for how dark everything is. It was a jolly good time for me to come out and talk about the Union in public for the very first time, right, guys? Oh my god, right? We're bad registration. We, our squad is Marlon LeBlanc is gone with no presented reason. That's bizarre, by the way. Yeah, not great. But I'm looking forward to at least speculating a little bit and kind of go through my perspective anyway on how the Unions are gonna fare with Bradley Carnell. It's very intriguing stuff indeed.
So the one thing I would say, everybody knows who Jose is at this point, and this is the first time you've been on the show. And for people who may not be aware of you, your background into soccer scouting and whatnot, can you let people know just a little bit about yourself, LA?
Yeah, for sure. So I came to Philadelphia to get a master's in sport analytics from Temple University in 2022. That's when I started with the Union. That's when I started supporting the team as a result of working within the organization for every Saturday and every Sunday with the Union and the Union 2. So I got to watch lots of Marlon LeBlanc and Union 2 as well, and had a real bond there, and I really backed them and everything. But I have that I graduated last year from that. I did some scouting with Dinamo Tbilisi in my time there, some analysis pieces for a couple of different organizations and websites, and my own blogging and writing work. I had a podcast as well, just another football podcast that was sadly discontinued, so I could focus on Arabic language analysis pieces for people on YouTube. I've been commenting as Tacticality there. That's my YouTube channel. So yeah, if any of you speak Arabic, you're welcome. You can check that out. But I am starting to write a little bit again, and that's kind of the first one. It's also called Tacticality, the blog, so you can check that out as well. But absolute pleasure to be here. I've come to know you guys this year, working in the press box every home game, and yeah, it's a real pleasure to finally be on the podcast. I haven't followed it for the year. Sadly, it's the worst Union year ever, but hopefully next year is better, and we can only say hopefully. I don't know about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll let Jose go ahead and get the first question here into LA. And please, people in the comments, if you guys have questions for him, feel free to put them into the chat and we'll get to them as well.
Yeah, so first and foremost, thanks for joining Todd's show and allowing us to pick your brain. I'm so intrigued to hear about, I guess, 1,000-foot level, right? Is the commentary that came from the press release and the press conference about Bradley accurate? Where is this move really going to bring the club back to its roots, or whatever Ernst Tanner sees the roots to be, right? Go back, I think the word was identity, actually, that was used within the press release. Is this actually going to take the team back to where maybe Ernst felt that the club deviated away from it? Does your data, does your study show any of that, or any signs of that going back to what it was?
It is intriguing that Ernst Tanner kept saying, get back to where we want to be, get back to our philosophy, get back to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know whether that's exactly accurate, but it does seem to be a perfect fit for what Ernst Tanner wants. We are, I mean, under Jim Curtin, we were a very high pressing team, very in your face, as Bradley Carnell put it. Lots and lots of turnover, lots of turnovers that lead to chances and lead to goals, and we saw that in its peak in 2022. Even from the second game of the season against second home game of the season against Charlotte, I can remember it. We pressed the goalkeeper, we picked the ball off him, and Gazdak taps it in. It's that sort of style that we saw with Curtin, but it's a little bit more intense, I would say. It gives me, I think Curtin was a little bit more reserved on the ball, even a little bit less direct in the amount of time it takes to construct an attack and get to the penalty area. So when you look at things like direct speed, which is the speed at which the ball goes, the speed at which the ball progresses up the field, and build up attacks, which ended a shot or a touch in the penalty area. These things are similar. I think St. Louis in 2023, and that's certainly their better year of the two that existed, are higher. They're more New York Red Bulls numbers, and it's certainly a Red Bull sort of higher. We want to be that sort of team, it looks like, and we want to play with lots of intensity and in your face kind of thing. Is it getting back to the philosophy, as Ernst Tanner put it? I think he would have referenced that more in terms of integrating youngsters and integrating Union 2 players and players on the pathway, rather than exactly the type of football he is playing. Although I think the brand of football is a huge part of it.
Yeah, when you look at Bradley Carnell, I mean, he does give youth players chances, and not to plug my own content, but definitely going to do that on my show. I have a piece up there just looking at all the youth players during Bradley's time in St. Louis, and even at New York Red Bulls when he was the interim manager. He gave Caden Clark his debut against Atlanta United. Young guys are going to get a chance, and that's what Jose and I have talked about on this show a couple weeks ago when it was official that Bradley Carnell was going to be the guy. And if you're a Davi Vasquez, a CJ Olney, a Kevin Sullivan, you got to be happy with this appointment, just knowing that Bradley trusts young players. And not saying that Jim Curtin didn't trust young players, because he sure as hell did give young guys chances. Jack McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan, Nathan Harriel. The list can go on and on and on. Anthony Fontana, Brendan Aronson, Paxton Aronson. Again, I mean, Jim Curtin gave young guys a chance to play. And even last year in MLS, the Union still led the league in MLS minutes, but they didn't give a lot of minutes to CJ Only, didn't give any to David Vasquez, barely gave any minutes to Kevin Sullivan. I mean, out of all the new homegrown players last year, it was Andrew Rick who got the most minutes, and that was because of an injury to Andre Blake and because of Oliver Zemla having questionable moments at multiple times last season. And so Andrew Rick was always going to get a homegrown contract. It was maybe just a little bit sped up because of the circumstances that the Union found themselves in last year. But it wasn't like the Union weren't playing homegrown guys. I mean, Quinn Sullivan was one of the most promising players, one of their biggest contributions last season. Jack McGlynn played so well that he wound up getting on that USMT U23 roster to France. Same with Nathan Harriel. And so I think Jose and I talked about it, where Quinn Sullivan had to have been so close to getting on that roster finally. And you feel for a player like Brendan Craig, if he was still with the club, yeah, I mean, he could have been a player too that was going to the Olympics.
100%.
And, you know, unfortunately for him, it just didn't work out in Philadelphia. It didn't work out really in Austin. And when he was in El Paso, the first half of the season, it worked out. They get a new coach, and the new coach, for whatever reason, just stopped playing him. And so, again, it's not like the Union don't play young players, but listening to Ernst Tanner talk and seeing what Bradley Carnell does, yeah, it seems like they really, really, really want to dive into giving young guys a chance. And how many times, Jose, did Kai Wagner specifically say to us, yeah, we need more players. We can't rely on these young guys. And Ernst Tanner said, you know, I don't know if that's true, because we've never seen them play.
Martinez as well.
Yeah, Jose Martinez. I mean, like, these guys would know. They're seasoned pros, and they're practicing with them every single day, and they would know, you know, if they're not up to the standards in practice, then why would Jim Curtin give these guys opportunities? You got to earn your spot. And Ernst Tanner, again, talked about that in his press conference, that guys have to earn their spot in this roster. But for whatever reason, you know, Ernst Tanner wasn't happy with young guys not getting a chance, not getting an opportunity, and they bring in Bradley Carnell, who sure as hell is going to give that opportunity.
I think the fact that we lead MLS minutes in integrating youth players, pathway players, Union 2 players, etc., and the fact that most of those minutes are Andrew Rick because of an injury, and the fact that we still had lots of players, probably like half the squad, give or take, with with Union 2 and youth playing experience at the Union. It just speaks to how little recruitment we have made, and it makes me concerned. Ernst Tanner promised new signings. You will remember the press conference, and he said the word definitely. Everybody, hold him to that. So I think we will actually sign one or two more. But you do make a really good point about Kai Wagner, Jose Martinez coming out and saying that, you know, if you want to win, if we want to see a Union like the 2022 team that came within, I don't know how many seconds to winning MLS Cup, that squad isn't the squad you want to have. And the Union 2 players are excellent at a Union 2 level, at an MLS Next Pro level. You have to also remember that they are, I think, the youngest squad, if I'm not mistaken, in MLS Next Pro.
Pretty sure.
You are asking then the youngest squad in MLS Next Pro to jump in to the first team. That feels significant to me. But it's still early in it. Look, we just started preseason. The team's just landed in Marbella. There is still time, and we kind of just have to wait and see who impresses in the camp and who makes, you know, Carnell and Ernst Tanner go, well, maybe we need to improve in that area. But there are lots of areas that we already need to improve on regardless.
So for context sake here, in 45 games last season for the Union, Quinn Sullivan played in every single game. He played 3,258 minutes, which was the fourth most on the team. Jack McGlynn came in at number 6, playing 2,977 minutes in 39 games. Nathan Harrier was at 7, and 39 appearances, 37 appearances, sorry, and 2,916 minutes played. So yeah, I mean they're getting homegrown players in, and they've been key contributing players to this squad. Jose, go ahead.
To me, it's fascinating in terms of I want to give these guys a shot, right? And I think it's rightfully fair for some of these guys to get a shot, right? Because if things did not work out last year, why try to do the same thing over again? Is the answer for them to be eating up the majority of the minutes? I don't believe so, because there has to be a pathway, right, in terms of climbing up to the level. If you're good enough, you will be on the field. And I think it was a similar saying that Jim Curtin would share with us in the press. If you're good enough, you're old enough, I think was exactly what he said a couple of times. But it's a very hard thing to ask a Frankie Westfield to go ahead and be equally or better than Kai Wagner if he was to be put on as a left back, or if he was to use his right foot and be on a right back, or gosh, imagine how if he was versatile enough, and he might be, as Nate Harriel, and potentially play center back from time to time. That would be unbelievable. But I just don't think that would be fair to expect from him. So I hope that this trip to Spain does give them the opportunity to show why they belong and get minutes, but to fully expect them to dive in and eat up the bulk of the minutes just is not the case. I'm fairly certain that there's more coming in terms of moves for Philadelphia, but is it gonna be enough to move this team forward? I hope so, but this is not the NBA. This is not MLB. This is not NFL, where a single player can completely flip a roster upside down in terms of success versus failure. So I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Though I do want to ask you, and again, thank you for hopping on with us. Where do you see in terms of your statistics where the pieces, or what are the pieces that you would think Bradley needs to achieve what he's being asked to do here in Philadelphia, to bring back the identity? What are the puzzle pieces that he might be missing as you look at the current roster? And granted, the holes that are still there, but also how can those be plugged, and what type of profile do you think that he's looking for to plug in some of these holes?
It's worth mentioning that probably his most important puzzle piece was Leuven. He's a midfield player, played center midfield, that kind of sprayed it around. He had in the early part, I read an article from the analyst that was kind of at the time looking at their start to the season, because it was a historic start. Leuven was playing more long balls than anybody else outfield on the team, just second behind the goalkeeper, and had a really high output in terms of chance creation numbers. We have that in Jack McGlynn. We may have that with Brandon Vasquez if he were to come in. CJ Olney, Kevin Sullivan can, if he gets MLS. He's 15. I wouldn't expect Kevin Sullivan to play any significant part yet. Maybe next season. But so that sort of profile in terms of someone in midfield taking control, spraying it around, really turning defense into attack, getting that transition going. We have that profile. That's probably the strongest area we have. That and right back, because we have two starting quality right backs. Pretty much everywhere else on the field, except goalkeeper, I would say is in need of improvement. I think he's so direct that he wants to get the ball early enough into the area that I think we need two same-footed fullbacks. Like right back plays with his right, left back plays with his left. Kai Wagner is the only one there. Is he going? Is he staying? There's a 2 million release clause there. I think any team in Italy in particular would, in kind of mid-table below in Italy, would really benefit from having him. Even the Bundesliga. There's a real opportunity there for people. But I think striker, though, is the weakest area in terms of a profile fit, because you had guys like Joao Klaus in St. Louis, complete striker. The hold up is as good as the first touch, is as good as the finishing, as good as the speed and the off ball movement. We lack in some areas with all three strikers that we have. We have Ura, Baribo, and Donovan. Ura, I think, lacks the speed and the sort of finishing consistency in front of goal. Baribo lacks the first touch. And Donovan is just not at the level, frankly. Anyways, so the other alarming thing is you have, or I don't want to keep saying alarming and bad, like discouraging words like that, but I guess the eye-catching thing is we have a squad that only really fits one system that Bradley Carnell used in his time in St. Louis. I firmly believe that he's going to use the diamond again because that's the squad we have. We don't have any wingers. And we have 2 starting quality strikers. So we expect to see them to start because they expect to start. So that's another interesting piece where the squad points to that, but we still need like one more striker to make it work. So it's an interesting thing, especially up front. I think the team absolutely needs another striker, like another starting quality striker that will come in and fit in straight away. And I would probably actually play him instead of Baribo rather than instead of Ura. Center backs, I think we need someone that's good on set pieces, good in the air. Since Jack Elliott left, Glavinovic doesn't seem like he's that sort of guy. He's someone who will step up and will contribute a lot to pressing up high. But aerially, we don't know whether he's good enough for that sort of role or not. And St. Louis were really good on set pieces in 2023. The best team in set pieces in 2023, in fact.
Yeah, and the Philadelphia Union, I mean, they were key last year in set pieces, scoring a league high 19 goals. And so I'd expect with, which, by the way, we still haven't heard a official announcement yet on the Union assistant coaches. God, dude, you're just going to have me go off on a rant again. But assuming Frank Leich's still with the club, the Union have been dominant under his leadership ever since he took over set pieces in 2021 or 2020 with the club. I think it was 2020, came during COVID. But yeah, Frank Leich's been a fantastic addition to this coaching staff and has really changed the momentum how this team defends and attacks set pieces. But a lot of good information you just brought up there, Ali. I'm assuming this is your brother. You said when is Kevin?
He's my twin brother.
City, nice. Kevin Sullivan's going
to. This is some Twin Peaks shit. The guy's like literally identical. That's incredible.
Hi, Kareem.
Wow, sorry, Todd.
There you go.
Now you're good. So I'm gonna get Mark and Matt Kelkenberg in here too. We can just have the twins. So just Jose and I go away, and then Ali and his brother step in for us, and then Mark and his brother come in, and then it could be the all twin show. It'd be fantastic. But yeah, your brother says when is Kevin Sullivan going to Manchester City? 2027. So yeah, I hear you saying that you wouldn't expect Kevin Sullivan to play a ton of minutes, and I would disagree with that. I think Kevin's going to play a good amount of minutes. MLS is not going to allow Kevin to sit on the bench. Ernst Tanner is not going to allow Kevin Sullivan to sit on that bench. And yes, Kevin is a huge marketing machine. They're going to bleed that dry until they can't any longer. And so can you guys imagine the day that Kevin scores his first Philadelphia Union goal? We will probably see that goal for the rest of the season on social media, and the team's going to continue to pimp that out as long as they can. So I do think Kevin's going to play a significant amount of minutes. But one player you did bring up in the midfield is Jack McGlynn, and a lot of people on social media said they don't really see how Jack McGlynn fits into the system where Bradley Carnell is going to warrant pressing for 90 minutes. And yeah, Jack McGlynn would tell you too, his biggest flaw is defense, and that's something that he's been improving on, wants to continue to improve on. But you do bring in a good comparison in Edward Lewin, the German midfielder that they brought in their inaugural season. He was the catalyst for the midfield and setting up the goals. And I think maybe that's one thing that fans are maybe not paying too much attention to is, okay, yeah, Jack McGlynn's not going to bring you the pressing stats that a Brendan Aronson, or Jameer Montero, or Leon Flock did during the system when the Union were at their best playing the 4-4-2 diamond. But, getting a player that's a playmaker, has one of the best left foots in all of MLS. Do you see Jack McGlynn still having a role in this system?
So this is an interesting point because it is true that Jack McGlynn struggles with pressing and struggles with sort of staying at the fitness level for 90 minutes for that sort of intensity. I think what tends to happen when and I fall into this trap myself is when a manager comes out and another manager comes in, we kind of do this thing where we imagine how it's like exactly or applying exactly the same things that the incoming manager did at his previous club. So in this case, we are talking about the Union and their current system and their current squad and comparing making a one-to-one comparison to the St. Louis City squad in at least in the best of times under Bradley Carnell. It's like put it this way. So Arne Slot, it's easy for me to say because I'm a Liverpool fan, comes in for Jurgen Klopp, and then we all start talking. How does this work? There was this right back that played all across the back line, and then immediately media starts talking about that. His name was real long. I forget the name, but he was a defender at Feyenoord, one of their best players under Slot. If the media immediately starts to talk about the potential of him transferring to Liverpool to fit the system. And I think we can fall into that trap a little bit. It's a case for me where Bradley Carnell is actually a little bit tactically flexible and has changed his system a couple times. He's done 4-2-3-1. He's done 4-2-2. Not like a diamond, but 2 and then 2 attacking mids and then 2 strikers, or 2 8s and 2 strikers. So he has that sort of flexibility where he can potentially find ways to integrate the best players of the team into his system. And then Jack McGlynn still has room to improve his fitness, and how the fitness regimen for him will apply, what sort of program they'll have for him, because I think the team will be kind of conditioned to play that sort of way. The other thing I would say is that we don't have a lot of, we don't have the congested fixtures of the last 2 seasons where there's a Champions League and there's a League Cup at the same time as the league. We're not in the Champions League, so you can get a little bit more out of the players per game. And I think while Jack McGlynn isn't the greatest at pressing, I think he'll definitely learn. He definitely has the capacity to learn, and it just depends on the coaching aspect of it.
Good, Jose.
What I wanted to ask you next is in regards to sort of looking at last year's results, right? And last year's flaws and faults. And sure, it's difficult it's nearly impossible, actually. It's apples to oranges, right? As the league year, calendar year flips over to now the new one. Do you think that with this new tactical mentality that out of, just looking at it, not actually watching it or experiencing it per se, what Bradley brings with the roster that he has, do you think that it is enough to push the Union over the line and get back into MLS playoffs? Or do you think that this roster and everything that he has at his hands right now is not of quality yet to crack into what is already a pretty deep and extended playoff system?
This is an extremely thin squad, I would say. We definitely need quality additions, especially up front. We need to bring goals in. I think when you look at the depth chart of the Union, it's kind of like, what your first 11 is. You know who's the best player in every position. That may be a positive thing. When you start the same guys at the same time, chemistry improves, and they know what to do. As soon as you lose a player, though, the quality drop there is significant. Either the quality drop or at least the experience drop. To your point, I think Kevin Sullivan can definitely get significant MLS minutes. My point there was that he's 15, so it's hard for me to imagine. I would have said next season, maybe when he turns 16, Lamine Yamal style. But I take your point, and I think it may well happen, because if you get 2 injuries in center midfield, all you're left with is like Alejandro Bedoya and David Vasquez and CJ Olney. Then Cavan comes into the equation, So it's a case of adding. I think the first 11 itself needs quality. By the way, Daniel Gazdag's number 2 was Jeremy Raffanello. Is he anywhere near ready to step up into that sort of role? Maybe not for me, unfortunately. Although I really rate Jeremy Raffanello's ball striking, like his shot power in like training sessions and in pregame warmups is insane.
I thought you were gonna say hair.
I think. Oh, okay. That's a whole story entirely. I would say we need a left back, central defender, definitely striker, absolute like striker number one priority for me. And then possibly like another hardworking sort of center midfielder. Leon Flach would have been actually excellent in that sort of system.
Yeah.
Really sad that he went.
Yeah, for free too. It's unfortunate that the Union did not get anything for Liam Flock. You bring up Kai Wagner, and a comment here on YouTube from Surprise Gaming says, Kai is yet to post about being in Spain and doesn't appear to be with the team this preseason thus far. I think he has moved on. I'm not going to buy into that Kai's moved on just because he hasn't posted on social media yet. There's a lot of players that haven't posted on social media yet. Yes, I know there was rumors that Parma was interested in Kai Wagner. Fenerbahce in Turkey was interested. Coventry, I believe, in the championship in England was interested. And, this has been the story with Kai Wagner. It seems ever since he's been here, it's been rumors linking him away. And some people, myself included, thought maybe these rumors would be put to bed once he signs that long-term contract with the Union. And let's not forget, too, that last year he made a little bit over $1 million in MLS as a left back, which is, a decent amount of money. I'll have to pull it up here for a second to see where he is in terms of highest paid left backs in the league. But I would imagine that's top three. Jordi Alba, I would imagine, is number one. But yeah, to pay a left back a little bit over $1 million and dividing that over 34 weeks, that comes out, 52 weeks, that comes out to be a little bit over $34,000 a week, which, teams I feel like in Europe can afford that and everything. But at the same time, too, you're paying a left back that much money. And do teams really want to be paying that type of money to a left back? Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Maybe that's part of the reason why Kai Wagner came back to the Philadelphia Union. Let's not forget, last year he was a free agent. He was able to sign wherever he wanted to, and maybe at the end of the day, the Union were the team that were offering him the most amount of money. So yeah, I don't take him not posting on social media as, oh, he might not be with the team in Spain. Jose, I'll go to you.
I almost want to say I'm on a Kai Wagner moratorium, but I sort of am. I whenever I see a rumor at this point, and again, like inside baseball, my contact with sources I treat as currency, and I definitely don't want to run through them on stuff that's just either unbelievable or I'm just not interested whatsoever to chase. So Kai Wagner is not going to get any more of my source currency, if that makes any sense. And if he wants to go, fantastic. Wish him the best. Thank you for whatever you've done for this club, which has been a lot, and I don't mean that in a mean way whatsoever. But ultimately, if he has bigger aspirations than MLS, he should go. And if that's the case, fantastic. Best of luck.
So then, they bring up left back there, Ali. If Kai Wagner was to leave this season, that becomes, in your opinion, the number one biggest hole for this team to fill, right?
Yeah, because we don't have anybody there. Like your left back becomes Frankie Westfield, and then his backup becomes a right back. Like if you don't have a left-footed left back, then it definitely you're gonna have to automatically replace it. Like it's gonna have to go out there and do something. I would agree with that.
All right, so I'll go one more question. I'll let you go, Jose. If anybody in the comment has questions, we'll end the show soon. We've been going for an hour, and Jose's in the airport for people who are just joining, so I don't want to take up too much of his time. I'm surprised the internet. Mike Thomas had that comment at the beginning of the show. This might be the best internet Wi-Fi ever.
Question.
Go ahead.
Are you using Wi-Fi or are you using your own hotspot?
I am literally on SFO's free Wi-Fi, guest Wi-Fi, whatever it is. So through even through Samsung's built-in VPN, so no one steals my stuff. So it's being filtered even through a VPN. So fantastic job to the tech capital of the United States.
Yeah, it is. It is great stuff. But I guess my last question, and you touched on this a little bit, and I think part of the reason why we saw Jim Curtin get away from the pressing that made this team successful in 2020, 2021, and in 2022 is this team's got older and they kept running it back. And I always on the show use Liverpool as an example. Who better than having a Liverpool fan on the show? Look at Adam Lallana, James Milner, Jordan Henderson, Lucas Levy. I mean, that midfield was ran into the ground, and Liverpool weren't getting the results. And then eventually they have to go and revamp their midfield. And now look at them under Arne Slot. And I know they're not pressing as much as they did under Jurgen Klopp, keeping possession of the ball a little bit more. But there has to be something said that, you have the same players and you want high press. They're going to get worn out. And I think Jim Curtin realized that last year. Hey, look, we don't have the legs. We aren't the same team we were 2-3 years ago in terms of being able to press from nonstop from the first minute to the last minute of the game. We just don't have it in our legs anymore. And then you add in the injuries. You add in, Andre Blake not being here for majority of the season because of his injury makes a big difference. But then at the same time, too, Jack McGlynn, we talked about him, a playmaker, one of the best left foot. You get him and Kai Wagner on the ball majority of the game because of how well they are at creating chances for the team. Kai Wagner, I believe, led the team in chances created last year. Jack McGlynn, I think, was number 3, definitely in the top 3, Jack McGlynn. And so it should be no surprise to Union fans that, look, Jim Curtin went a little bit away from what made this team successful because of the injuries. And would that be something that you agree with there, Ali, that just asking these guys, the same players, to press nonstop is the reason why Jim Curtin would have went away from that pressing style? And now here's Ernst Tanner saying, no, look, we want to get back to that pressing style, and we want to see if this team still has that in them. And could that ultimately blow up into their face, assuming, none of us believe the roster is going to be final. This is it. They're still going to make some more signings. But if it was final,
yeah,
that's got to be why they went away from the high pressing last season, right?
I think 2 things. I wouldn't expect like 3 or more signings. You guys know the board. So maybe it's going to be a couple, depending on who leaves as well. If Kai Wagner leaves, then definitely going to replace him, of course, right? Hopefully. I would say the counterpoint to that, though, is, Jim Curtin went away from pressing as much because the team was ran into the ground. But then Ernst Tanner would argue, look at the results, 4 home wins all season. That's insane, right? Not making an expanded playoffs where 14 teams make the playoffs and we're not part of it. That's crazy. So it may be the case where, we just need to get back to plan A and just make the application better. And again, whether that is something to do with the conditioning of the team, we definitely got seriously unlucky with injuries last season, and we ended up playing Nathan Harriel at center back and things like that. Obviously, a lot to be said about squad depth there, and this is all stuff you guys have talked about before, and the Union fan base have talked about continuously. I think I'm actually optimistic because the style of Carnell is familiar to the players. There's not going to be a huge shift in the tactics or the team shape or the roles of the players. And I think he has some sort of flexibility to be able to accommodate the best players on the team and their roles, like we spoke with Jack McGlynn. So that part actually makes me more optimistic than pessimistic. But again, I don't think we can achieve anything without additions, because we definitely need actual first team starting quality rather than just bringing in depth. We actually need to improve the squad. That's the reality. So it's a squad depth issue rather than a tactical issue, in my opinion.
Do you, and this is my final one, Todd, and it's super brief, but I want to turn it over to the comments so we can make sure we address some of those. But do you continue to stand on that? And I sense that the answer is yes, even with the Union bowing out of Leagues Cup, or whatever the situation is going to be with Leagues Cup. Obviously, Ernst Tanner spilled the beans, whatever the hell you want to call it, that he did over that press conference to me. Not qualifying for CONCACAF Champions Cup. And who knows what happens with U.S. Open Cup. Do you think that this roster, even, I know you mentioned sort of one injury away, but do you think even if it's a 1 or 2 competitions, the roster's still entirely too thin to even achieve something as easy as, I say easy in air quotes, but qualifying for MLS playoffs with such a big berth field?
If we are able to keep the starting 11 fit for the whole season, then sure, we'll make the playoffs. We might, get past the first round. I would say I would look at sort of 8th, 9th, 10th for that starting 11. Again, you have to assume it stays fit, and you have to assume it adapts to the intensity of the press. And it's a great thing for the Union that we don't have as many games. It's just the league. That's the focus. Go all in and see how high you can go. So I do think we can make the playoffs. Definitely. There are still teams I think are in a little bit worse situations that just don't have as much quality as we do have. Let's not forget at the end of the day that a lot of this squad is the squad that ended up in MLS Cup and within seconds of winning everything. These guys have quality. It's just that the quality is getting sapped and we aren't seeing any replacements yet. So that's why there's like this cautious tone about everything we've talked about today. But I do think the quality we already have is good enough to at least make the playoffs. Just need to make sure of that with investing in the team. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good answer, and I'll be honest, right? After reading your piece, I'm like, man, Ali's gonna come in here and just completely tear apart Bradley Carnell and just bring nothing but sad news to Union fans, because that's
no
all what our show's been. I feel like the last couple of weeks is just people just being negative comments after negative comments, and I think Jose and I have, we hear what the fans are saying and everything, but we try to come from a different angle. And I think at the same time, some of these fans that are completely giving up on Bradley Carnell, giving up on this team, it's like they haven't even played a single game yet. So how can you give up on a manager that's not played a single game yet? And you bring up a good point, right? What made the Union successful was the style of soccer that Bradley Carnell is going to bring to the Philadelphia Union. And if those players get hurt, okay, it's going to be maybe a little bit of an issue. And injuries happen in soccer, but I think we're all pretty optimistic that the Union are going to make a couple more signings that don't just include the homegrown signings. I mean, Ernst Tanner said just as much that at his press conference. He said not just including the homegrown players. I forget exactly the quote there, but yeah, I think this squad is enough for fans to panic and say, look, we can't win anything with all these homegrown guys, with all these young guys on the team. But I mean, you bring up a good point, right? What made this team successful was the style of play that Bradley Carnell is going to come and bring in. I guess my worry though is, part of the reason why Jim Curtin went away from that is because the legs were catching up to these players from all the years. Mike Thomas has a comment. I appreciate you, Mike, for being here from the start to the finish. Any other comments, any other questions for Ali, for Jose, for myself? Let them come in before we end the show. Mike says, where's the ambition? On paper, the squad is worse than last year. And, I mean, you're not wrong. You lost Jack Elliott. I totally get that, right? Ali Badori comes back, and it's yet to be seen how many more minutes that Ali plays. You lost Julian Kranza during halfway through the season. Jose Martinez is no longer here. Damian Lowe. It's key players that you lost last year, and I think fans were hoping that the summer transfer window, the Union would go out and replace the Julian Kranza. They didn't. Sam Adeniran's no longer here. Jose Martinez was replaced by Danley John Jock, even though I don't believe Danley is the sixth for this club. I would look for the club to go out and get another 6, maybe. And then, you bring up goalkeeper. Ernst Tanner said, he was happy with their goalkeepers. You want Andre Blake injury away from potentially being in the same place that you were last season. And let's face it, Andre's not getting any younger. He's had a lot of injuries the last couple seasons, and he takes good care of his body. And Phil Whedon, I know, is going to get the best out of Andre Blake. We're in good hands with Phil Whedon, as with the rest of the goalkeepers. But it is scary when you think about it. You're right, Mike, where all it takes is one injury away. I mean, look, if Mikhail or Ty Baribo go out, who's your next striker in line? Chris Donovan,
Quinn Sullivan.
You got Quinn Sullivan, God forbid, and goes back up top. Kevin Sullivan, do we see playing up top? So yeah, I mean, I totally get it, but The fact of the matter is the Union don't have the first game until February 22nd against Orlando City, and Ernst Tanner has made a lot of his signings in January towards February, and there's a lot of time for signings to be made. So I understand why fans are a little bit negative right now, where it's only been one official move that hasn't been Alejandro Bedoya coming into the club, but I do think that there is positive news on the horizon. Anybody else want to take this? Jose, no. LA, you good?
I do think we'll sign people because it has been promised.
Yeah. There's a comment here.
I can't comment.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay,
It's totally fine there, Jose. Comment here says, is there any other notable absences for preseason? We talked about it a little bit with Kai Wagner. I mean, I could care less, right? I mean, I don't care if players are posting that they're in Spain or not. If you have a good VPN, maybe you can watch the game on the 16th. Do you remember the website for that, Jose?
Pretty sure it's the 19th, and it is CT Sports, I think. If you just Google Slavia Praha or Prague, whatever, on up of my profile, I think I found the post there, so you should be able to, with a good VPN, watch it. I think. I don't know that there's a subscription required, but I certainly will try to watch it.
Yeah, sorry. Sunday the 19th, you're correct, is the Union's first preseason game at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so if you guys can find a way to get by the paywall or whatever the case may be, look, I wish the Union, and maybe the Union do announce something. I mean, why would it be that hard to announce? And fans, I know I've been asking for preseason games for years to be streamed down in Florida, and we get such delayed updates to the Union's website, and people get so pissed by halfway points. Like, the game's almost over, and we've only got 3 updates on this game. Like, what is going on? Michael chimes in again, kind of echoes Mike's point, says, we lost more than we gained for sure. Look forward to more signings, crickets for the Union on the transfer market. Look, just wait and see, people. Wait and see. And I think that's where we're ended at. But Ali, where can people find you on social media?
I think the best place is Twitter, or X, as they call it these days. But yeah, it's at Tacticality. Also have the blog, where this is the first of lots of pieces to come. And yeah, you can find me on those places. If you are an Arabic speaker, then check out the YouTube channel. Everything is going to be on the link in my profile. So yeah, look forward to seeing you there.
Go ahead. I think I already have it linked on YouTube to all your pages. And if not, I'll make sure I have it. And for people who are listening on the podcast feed, I'll be sure to have it in the feed as well. Jose, we'll go to you. Where can people, by the time I feel like they should know where to follow you? But if not,
yeah, you can find me on X at Jose R Nunes 91. Substack pinned on there or somewhere in my profile. But I think there's more stuff coming down the pike here. Just hang tight. I think stuff is being worked out, and as we mentioned, the Union beat's not going to slow down anytime soon. I think we can rest assured for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick, and make sure you check out the YouTube channel. We are live on YouTube. That's how we've been doing the last couple of episodes, and don't plan on stopping that. So youtube.com/Free Kick Pod. Check out the goals breakdown videos that I did a couple weeks ago for the top 10 saves, top 10 goals from 2024. And before you guys know it, we'll have our first goals breakdown season, or first goals breakdown in 2025 for that Orlando City game that is coming up quickly. And if you guys want to check out my writing, check it out at thefreekick.substack.com. But again, Ali, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Again, apologies that Jose and I, took 30 minutes, but the listeners come to expect that. When Jose and I say we're going to talk for just this amount of time, it always goes over. So I'm not sure if you were aware of that, but the listeners sure as heck were. And I appreciate you for sticking through, being with us tonight. Jose, in an airport, I've enjoyed watching who's walking by you in the background, just watching people get to their gates and everything, while people are probably walking by you like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
I don't think people realize they've honestly. I feel like seeing video on a tablet, which is what I'm doing, or a laptop, is all too common nowadays. That it's second nature for people to see at an airport. So I'm glad I was able to give you some people watching in front of this random Brookstone store that's selling overpriced stuffed animals and neck pillows for the airplane. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate you making that comment. And hopefully we don't have to do an impromptu show while I'm in Seattle. Hopefully this is the end of news until next week at least.
Yeah.
Well, with the amount of news that you guys have been covering over the last week, I'm not sure, Jose. Like, you get ready, pal. But I do appreciate all the work you guys do. The union beat has been very quick over the last week. It's been crazy, and I just appreciate all the work you guys do to cover it in an environment, frankly, in MLS where, in my kind of experience interacting with you guys, it's kind of difficult to get in on stuff sometimes, and it's hard to get the the final word on what's exactly going on. So I do appreciate all the hard work you guys do. Really do.
Appreciate it.
The last comment we see here. Look, Jose, you're influencing people right here. Michael says Jose made me join X. LOL.
Huh. Oh,
just influencing people, Jose. I think Elon should give you a check for that, Jose. I mean, you're getting people to sign up because they're following your work on Substack, seeing what you say on Blue Sky, on Reddit, and so look at you. You're influencing people. So well done, Jose. But again, thank you guys for being here on the show tonight. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully we don't have to do a show next week, as I'll be in Florida. Jose will be in Seattle, but worst comes to worst, if we have to make time for it, I'll find some place in Disney World and we'll do a show. If we did a show in Disney World last year, we'll find a place to do it in Disney World. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.